I find when I start classes at 9:30, no one ever gets there till 10. It's part of at least the Pratt sort of routine. Where are you all from? Okay, now, please. Are you from Pratt?
No.
Where?
Misty?
Misty? You're a citizen. That's
Well,
fine.
that's really cool.
And where are you from?
Oh, where am I from in general?
No, I mean, are you Pratt or non-Pratt?
Oh, I'm Risty.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I'm Risty, but, or.
Oh, Risty, okay, great. What about you?
Non-Pratt.
Pratt?
Non-Pratt.
Non-Pratt.
Oh, not Pratt. Well, that's fine. Anyway.
I'm a Pratt student.
Okay, so anyway, let me tell you two things. First of all, as people are coming in, we have just put up yesterday our Sustainable Dorms exhibit in Higgins Hall, which is a block down. We'd love to have you come. And we have the models lighted. Some of the batteries have, well, we've had one battery go, but the other is electric-lighted. And I think you'll enjoy what the students have done with their models. And their boards, what they've done is present their, all third-year students at Pratt do a sustainable dorm in their design studio. And then in their required class, of their energy class, they have to do all the calculations and the details that have to do with sustainable design. So you'll see their main design images above, and then their board for our class of 2 foot by 3 foot that goes into all the energy calculations and everything. And it differs. Getting students in the third year to do a wind rose of what the direction of the wind, having them use a sundial with accurate information of where the sun's coming from. All of these things are major things that are really pressed home in the third year. But then what results, we're always surprised. And this year we're really excited about that things are presented. Also, we were working late last night. I was with my students till about 11:30 last night.
Wow.
But we don't have it in the slides this morning, but we're working on the town below Machu Picchu. After 27 years of being involved in Peru, the first 20 years we're involved with the site itself. And you'll see our huge model that survived the fire in Higgins down where the lighting lab is, just off the pit. The dorms are in the pit, the 2-story pit. Then right off of that is the Machu Picchu area, and our huge model that survived the fire. When the fire occurred, I rushed down at 7 a.m. after hearing New York 1, and I said to the fire chief, I'm very worried. There's this big brown model downstairs covered with heavy plastic, and I'm worried to death about it. And he said, I'll send someone down. And a few minutes he came back, he said, oh, there's this big brown model downstairs covered with heavy plastic, but our police dog just ran over it. So the police dog bounded from one side, which we still haven't repaired, to the other side, which we're in the process of repairing. But we would like you to see it, the energy conscious stuff we're doing.
Is this an architecture department?
Yeah, in the School of Architecture. After studying the great site itself and the temples and the magic that occurs on June 21, the shortest day of the year, when the sun comes in the Sun Temple and forms a perfect rectangle. You can see those photographs right at the model as well. But for the last 7 years, we've been concentrating on the town below. When we started, 800,000 people came per year, largely by train. Some came over the Inca Trail from Cusco. This year it was almost 900,000, and 26,000 people will show up the 3 days around the shortest day of the year, June 20th, June 21, and June 22nd. We used to go with our measuring devices and our sundials and everything at leisure, and now it's become madness. So you can imagine the impact it's having on the town. And the town has 1/3 of the buildings have rebars sticking up. They're waiting to finish their rooftop restaurant or nightclub. And as long as they have rebars sticking up, they don't pay taxes. So every year we have to pay more to get into Machu Picchu. At any rate, if you might be interested, here's our itinerary. We're going this year from June 2nd to June 12th. And we do probably twice as much as we go to all the great Inca places branching out from Cusco. And whereas most people go for 3 hours to Machu Picchu, we go for 3 days. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know this is here for you. Now, let's get to the slides.
Would you like any of the lights turned off?
I think just dimmed a little bit, yeah. While we're getting started also, I have another condition that I must tell you about. You might call it eyes wide shut. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, and my mother, the Schleifer side of my family, from Baden-Baden, Germany. At about this age that I'm at, after 44 years at Pratt, their eyes go like this, eyes wide shut. So I have a sustainable decision to make, $12,000 per eye to have it lifted on each side, or try to get Medicare to do it when I get even older. So I really have, probably the whole lighting thing for me is becoming a whole new reality. But this morning particularly, my left eye is giving up the ghost almost. So we'll get through this. Okay, let me go to this. Okay, and if we can get the control here. So basically our subject here is daylighting, and we want to introduce to you, if you don't know about it, the new colored photovoltaic coming from Spain and from Denmark, which is glazing that has photovoltaic material in it, but it lets daylight come through. And you'll see all that later on. Okay, so here's our basic statement. Design, research, and development of photovoltaic colored glass, which not only generates electricity, but also admits daylight, as incorporated in skylights, roofs, and south facades, drawn from the Christina Porter Memorial Lighting Lab, Higgins Hall School of Architecture. Again, we have the lighting lab opened this weekend as well. You're welcome to drop in. My daughter had a catastrophic accident at Dartmouth in her ski class as a young sophomore 13 years ago. She died a year later. She broke her skull as big as your left hand. It was replaced at Mount Sinai, and then 6 months later it had to come out. And you can imagine what it was like to live with your head sunk in and your hair growing back. So we're doing a lot of things. This is one of the 7 programs in her name that we are working on. Whoop, it went too far ahead. What happened? I accidentally touched it. Okay, so we began in the lighting lab a few years ago being interested in colored glass. We felt that why just do clear glass everywhere? Why not consider colored glass? And one of the first things we started doing was using red and green long before we discovered, or it was even come to the market. About 15 years ago, this is a model where we're really looking at colored lights. And of course, the problem that happens when you take this into sunlight and you do it hour by hour, guided by an accurate sundial for your sight, you get sort of crazy colors inside. Now, the question is, could you work in that room, or could it serve as an office or a lobby to a museum or whatever? It would depend upon what you're dealing with. Then we would turn the model around and we would try the green. But the interesting thing was to see what kind of mix we would get when we did it directly opposite of each other. Then soon after that, we had the north light, if you will, looking in this direction, clear glass to let north light come in around the clock and throughout the year. So this would lead today, what we'd be doing today would be making that red glass the new photovoltaic. And you can see this, it's not too bad, but then the questionable amount of light that gets in is also. Then comes along the ultimate skylight in New York City. And if you've seen it at the Fulton station at Broadway and Fulton Street, it's just amazing. But what most people don't realize, frankly, is that it not only is not symmetrical, which people think it is, but look at all of these little pieces. They help to reflect the sun. They're tuned to each day of the year, each month. So you get, like, when 9 o'clock sun hits, I believe this is actually 8, 9, 10, 11, and each one of these are aimed to not only reflect the sunlight and to spread it on this special screen, but also the screen itself diffuses it because it's a curving shape. So this has been very exciting for us, and particularly after it opened not too long ago. Notice also the optical shape of it, or elliptical shape of it. As you see the sun reflectors up there, it's bigger on the north side than it is on the south side. And that's all part of the story to help reflect and diffuse the light. Now, down below, it's just a wonderful balance. I always say what we should keep in mind, particularly from sustainable Pratt activities, we should really consider a balance of daylighting with artificial lighting. And they've done a beautiful job. On a sunny day, it's pretty good. They have the lights on dimmers. But then on a cloudy day like this one, they have a fairly nice array of balance of light. One could take a light meter and really carefully check it out, but notice those surfaces, it may not seem so much so on a cloudy day, but they're gently reflecting light. Another area we have been interested in is reflected or diffused electric light. Here at the old Whitney, which is now part of the Metropolitan Museum, I think still Breuer's light fixtures led to a whole new way of thinking. And now today, the bulbs, the lamps, if you will, have this darkened surface at the bottom, so the light reflects up, and then the diffusing surface of that semi piece of a dome helps to diffuse the light. It's still one of the really nice installations, and now particularly with low energy LEDs, it's much more effective. But what Breuer also did with these strange side lights, and they actually extend outward. And when you're there, this is the worst condition on a cloudy day. I tried to pick the worst condition to show you how the daylight helps to illuminate at least that immediate portion of the gallery. But what's really exciting is the ones that face out to Madison Avenue have this angularity to them. And of course, the piece of glass is an angular piece, a trapezoidal piece. Reflected light in Marcel Breuer's projected, he called them outset windows to avoid midtown heavily lighted buildings up Madison Avenue as an original design for the former Whitney. In other words, he originally was thinking about them being symmetrical, we're told. And yet the feeling was, let's say this was reversed, the lights at night from up Madison Avenue, the huge high-rise buildings that were coming aboard, and of course there are more now, would come too much into the museum. So he aimed the reflected surfaces northward. So he's getting northern light all the time. And if you haven't experienced it recently, the Met hasn't messed it up. It's all there originally. Give you another little historical note. When I was a student at the University of Kansas in Lawrence, I was elected a National Student Officer of the American Institute, the student version of the American Institute of Architects. And we were here in New York for the National Convention. We were invited to the Whitney, and Marcel Breuer himself, I don't want to really tell you how long ago it was, but it was about 50 years ago. He was sitting in his own Breuer chair on the second floor. He wasn't too well, but he was sitting there like a king or a queen. And we all got to, I don't remember if he was able to shake our hands or not, but I started enjoying this wonderful version of if you will, a wall skylight. There are very similar things that are skylights like this, but this is really one of the big innovations here in New York. Now, another thing is reflected daylight. We have a whole series of models where we have different kinds of not only Venetian blinds, but we have various kinds of horizontal louvers. The big problem is that even though a lot of the light is reflected not only to the ceiling, but the walls, much of the light that comes, as you can look out through the louvers, much of the light still is too much of an impact, where you get a darker wall and a totally lighter surface. So you'll see later how we've handled that. The way we did it was each louver is slightly turned, and you'll see the diagrams in a few minutes, so that most of the daylight from 9 to 3 throughout the year is reflected to the ceiling. And we encourage you to consider that in your own design work. Now, another biggie, and this is unfortunately off here on the side. There's no way we can adjust it because it's all pre-adjusted. But Cherot's glass house, Maison de Verre in Paris, is on exhibit at the Jewish Museum. And this incredible exhibition of his furniture and his famous glass house end this Sunday. And the museum closes at 5:30. If you could get up to see it, it's at 92nd Street and 5th Avenue. And it's easy to go by to the 86th Street subway on the Upper East Side. It's just phenomenal. Why did he do this transformation of a typical block through mansion or multifamily rich people's house to do the main owners with a wall that you can't see out of, but yet facing south? The kitchen and bathrooms, etc., are on the left. And the most fascinating thing about when you go to the exhibit, the designers have done this. At the end of the exhibit, you go into a room, and it's as big as this room, and you're back there. And suddenly this entire facade comes on, and it starts cutting through every 6 inches. You get right up to the glass wall, you're 6 inches in front of it, then you're inside the glass, then you're just inside the glass, and the famous glass staircase, which is right here. They cut through every other step. Then what's surprising, you go to the back of the building. I had never seen the north facade shown anywhere. And it turns out that there the family did have a combination of transparent and translucent glass. So you gotta see this exhibit. But for any of you in interior design, the furniture has never been shown hardly in New York before. Chiraud lived before the Nazi occupation and arrival in Paris. He did his great work in the approximately 1905 to about 1914 or 15 when he had to escape Paris. His wife came 2 years later. And the Chiraud furniture is absolutely incredible. And as you're going around to see different things, like the serving equipment in the kitchen that he built into the kitchen format, you'll see the servants in the wall going about cooking. You just have to see it. And then you come into where servants are serving tea, which is what he had in mind for rich people at the time. So a servant is serving the tea, and then you see this incredible, all of his furniture fold and stretch and move around. You just have to see it. And it ends this Sunday, but the glass house is fabulous. Now, why did he do it the way he did? Okay, well, down below where the medical office of one of the members of the family was, there's a little bit of clear glass. But the exciting thing about it is these are like, at the time, a kind of glass block. But they are doing some very special things. Here is the way it looks on the inside. The family wanted their privacy, even though it was their own courtyard. No one could see in from the street. But they wanted to have this brilliant light. And look at the blow up of these. They're like little glass blocks, but all of those surfaces allow when a ray of light hits, and many parallel rays of light hit, they bend and they go in all directions. I have not yet been able to get into the glass house. You have to arrange about a month in advance or longer to get in on a Thursday when they give only 1 day a week a tour, and you have to do it really a long time in advance. But if you ever get to see it, the lighting, I'm told, is absolutely unbelievable, because each one of those little specks in that glass is bouncing the light around. Now, another thing we're interested in, and some of you would know this exact address, we're interested in deflected electric lighting in motion in this case. If you've seen this is near Bloomingdale's across the street. All of these are acting, they could be acting as a curtain wall, but they're all moving. And the daylight hits them, so the daylight adds to all of this commotion. And we're very excited about that kind of thing. And it's more and more of this is coming to the facades of modern buildings. And as the clouds move over, the cloudy condition and the lighting, I don't know if it's tuned or whether it's just the amount of daylight coming in. I'm guessing it's the amount of daylighting, but there's a different balance of light to electric light. Now, another thing that is fantastic is this Japanese person, I'm sorry, excuse me, it's from Indonesia, Yahweh Kusama. Oh, her work. It's in effect colored lighting and stop action. This is in her book, Infinity Mirrors. Her show was here in New York not long ago. We're very excited about seeing if we could recreate this kind of thing in a glass facade, or if you wanted to do it as a three-dimensional space, how might you do it? And one of the new ideas would be, could this be spots of photovoltaic glass? There are photovoltaic pixels, if you will, now. We're very interested in maybe how this could inspire not only pixels of photovoltaic to let the light come on through, but what about LEDs? We're trying desperately to get a piece of the new glass. You can see it on Broadway. The entire photo image, a TV image, is being broadcast through a sheet of glass. There are LEDs now. The LED goes completely through the piece of glass. If you haven't seen it, what this could be would be a series of tiny LED spots on a circuit, a computerized circuit, that give you this kind of effect. And then we suspected you could also see out of it, but not see into it. So if you give people privacy from the outside of the facade, and again, I'm sure the artist, she doesn't have any of this idea at all that we are being inspired by her work. Now, another big deal is colored daylighting in motion. This is an incredible example. Let's just let you see the effect of it. It's La Defense offices in Almere, Netherlands. Have any of you seen this in the Netherlands? It's just, I don't have my own photos of it, but this is what's happening. These facades are clad with glass panels in which a multicolored foil is integrated, and I might say very subtly. And I'm going to go back to the slide so you get a good picture of it too. Depending on the time of day and the angle of incidence, a variety of different colors are reflected, animating the courtyards. And again, it's from the UN studio. I believe they are located, I have their email, but you just go on the internet to UN studio and put in La Defense offices, Almere, Netherlands, and you get the whole information. Let me go back for just a moment. It's just amazing. And we'll also notice the glass, what it does on the inside. You've got almost the opposite color outside as it reflects back onto the plaza. But then when the light comes through the window, that's why we would love to have a piece of this also in the Christina Porter Lighting Lab, so we could really experiment with this and see the variation of color that when the sun hits, the outside is one thing. When it comes through, it's quite another thing. And what ends up happening within the space is perhaps a third phenomenon. Now, so all of this early stuff has led to some goals. Number one, colored glazing and skylights and roofs, as we saw first. Then dynamic skylights such as those for Fulton Center. Number three, balancing of electric lighting arrays with projected outset windows like Marcel Breuer's museum design. Number four, south facades with glazing and louvers to reflect daylight. We've done a lot of adjustment of those louvers, both vertical and horizontal, over the years. Number five, summer glazing with deflected electric lighting arrays in motion, like I showed you across in Bloomingdale's, plus the latest LEDs throughout glazing. We haven't quite got the samples yet. We were sent a sample last spring. We were trying to hook it up to our computer, and the computer said, "Depart from me, I never knew ye." We just couldn't, and when we called Arizona trying to get it worked out, so we gave up on that particular LED throughout the glazing, but they're now being produced. Number six, utilization of PV or photovoltaic, which admits daylight. That's what you're going to see from Denmark and Spain. Seven, utilization of colored PV in skylights, roofs, and window walls. Why do it just strictly in a south-facing wall where you're getting the optimum sun? Why not consider other tilted surfaces? And it could be if the roof is tilting, like Yale's, I haven't got it in this presentation, their School of Forestry, which has a curving hyperbolic building, and from the top for summer sun, the middle for mid-year sun, and in the lower solar rays on the lower part of the roof, that takes full advantage of the winter sunlight. So why not really do all the different facades and skylights and roofs of the building? And finally, the big new thing for you ladies in the audience, and you guys too, the two young ladies that got their PhDs at Rensselaer Polytechnic, they are the world experts on blue glazing and blue lamps. And we're going to see a quick result, and again, give you their website so you can go on for that. Oh, I went too far ahead. I'm sorry. So the first big thing to introduce you to, the dance solar energy. And if you want to take a photo of this, you just put in, somewhere there's the, you don't want to put in necessarily the sail, but I think if you just put, I believe it's in the next slide, but let's look what happens. That's the blue glazing with photovoltaic and the clear glazing to its left. And you can see the bouquet is being shown fairly substantially. I believe we've got the email for you in just a minute here. Here's an example I saw in Denmark where you've got the blue or gray. I think in this case it's gray glazing for photovoltaic in the glazing with the clear glass on the side. And this is a wonderful new innovation. Notice also as the daylight comes in, remember it's much lower in Scandinavia, and there's 3 months of almost total darkness with the sun, at least in northern Sweden, Norway, and Iceland. Maybe not so much Iceland, but in the Scandinavian countries, you have really darkness. The sun doesn't come up. But notice how the reflected light that does come in is working with the floor. Now, this is hard to read, but if you look right in the middle of the slide, you've got the blue or the gray, the red, the green. They also have it in lilac and some other colors. And this is on the internet that you can get for yourself. They also had the square and rounded versions that we have at the bus terminal, where you go to LaGuardia Airport from the G train or the E train. That's the old-fashioned way of doing it with the squares. Here we go. So Dansk. Let's see what is the best one. First of all, you can go on www.dansksolergi and then .Denmark, DK. That's probably the best place for you to get this for your own use. But we're very excited. We were getting samples from that one. My wife and I will be there this summer in Denmark and Sweden. And we're going to hopefully bring back through customs examples of this strange glass. Now, let's go to blue glass. There's a handful of buildings in New York City that have the new blue glass. This is one down by the Fulton Mall in downtown Brooklyn. This is on the Lower East Side, somewhat questionable as you go to the Williamsburg Bridge. I don't know the spec on this. It's blue glass, but it may just be the designer's intention to do the variation in the blue. Here down in Dumbo, this is on the north side, and this is not just reflecting the sky, but this, when you really look at it carefully, it's different than all the other buildings with clear white glazing. It's got this new blue aspect to it, and I've been trying to get it even in when it's cloudy to see what are the differences, and we really want to push the blue glass. Now, hear the ladies say this: blue light from a bulb or glass enhances one's circadian rhythms of the brain and also your diurnal vision of the human eye. One of the findings they found was we should all have, and we have one in the lighting lab, a blue light bulb in your desk lamp that you use with your computer, if you have such. You will find that you are much more attentive, you're much more comfortable with the light. But if you're an old fart, pardon the expression, if you're really old, they discovered that blue light at night keeps people awake. And elderly people just simply cannot get to sleep at the regular time if they've had blue light. They discovered this in nursing homes where the new blue lighting had been put in, and they found that the people couldn't get to sleep. So here is their website. I have another one for you that I think is a little bit shorter, and let me go to that. First of all, here's an example of how they talk about macular degeneration and how the blue light helps that as well. You're seeing the blue bulbs and also the blue glass. Here is an example of some of their recent research. And here I want you to have this website. It's www.irc.Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, or in other words, rpi.edu, then /programs/light and the word health, then another slash, and an L&H media.asp. I assume the latter part is Rensselaer's media outlet. So just a few topics, if we can just see them real quick. The rhythm of light. Circadian lighting supports health and well-being in the office environment. Number two, it's just a small list of the huge one. Quantifying circadian light and its impact. Light at night may disrupt sleep and health. That's for the element. How to design circadian lighting by top scientists. Could light alleviate Alzheimer's symptoms? That's a new one. I don't know about that. The SIL conference session to focus on the effects of lighting on health. And in this case, I believe this was, I'm not sure where it was, but this was the whole world looking at this whole topic of blue lighting. So again, if you like that website, it's a really wonderful breakthrough by these ladies at Rensselaer. Now, so how have we been sort of applying some of this initially? First of all, my students were using pieces of photovoltaic in a skylight. And we discovered soon that if we just left the light to come into the room, it got to be too crazy. So we made a drum under the skylight and we tilted it gently to help diffuse the light. And here you can see the beginnings of how that colored light is coming in and mixing. The big idea was to see how it would mix within the room. Now, you may say, why curved? When we started out, we weren't necessarily thinking that the glass itself would be curved, but you'd have pieces fitted in somewhat like you see here. But now, I just was at Landmarks the other day. The big new thing in town is curved glass. I've used it in clear glass and even thermal pane windows in Brooklyn Heights at 106 Pierpont, where we had the bay windows recreated in Wyoming in double glazed curved glass. But it's just a matter of time until pieces of red, green, and blue photovoltaic glazing, I believe, will be slightly curved to pick up more of the morning as well as the noon and the afternoon sun. So to show you how this sort of progressed, you can see there are times, now this is all photographed with an accurate sundial for New York City, guiding our tilting of the actual model in sunlight. So we're getting accurate sunlight coming through this. You notice again, up in the drum, that mix of color that's happening. And we think in a real space, it might be very dramatic. We know that we're cutting down on the lighting without other windows in this particular case study, but we're playing around to see what will happen. Two young ladies came up with this idea. The previous example by it was a young man, but they said, why don't we take the idea around town of vertical colored lighting and make it photovoltaic lighting? Somehow their idea was a breakthrough someday will be that tubes of light will be photovoltaic tubes, and that those tubes then can continue on into the space as a skylight. And what's exciting about this was look at the effect we got. We were really getting a mix of the blue, the green, and the red light. Now, when you go to Broadway, they used to be the sky. We saw Helen Mirren in Queen Elizabeth II. And as she is a young lady about to be crowned queen, and there are ladies in black and guys in black outfits bringing all her royal robes and accessories and crown in from the wings. As she walks forward, the big spotlights up in the balcony go on. At the time, they had little tiny red, green, and blue LEDs meshed together for the entire huge skylight. Today, and we have an example of this, the red, green, and blue are all caught in one little piece of LED. So you could have red light, green, blue, or then suddenly, when she hit the front of the stage and they put her royal robes around her and her crown and her scepter, it was unbelievable. It was like she was totally alive. If you look at that ball right there and imagine if that was the light hitting her face and everything, it was just incredible. So the idea that these girls had was, let's see if we could do something for the future to mix that light, and maybe at night they could also have the colored LEDs inside. So that was their idea. Now, here's our half of a roof again. And we've been perfecting it a little bit. The idea would be that on the left, the roof part, there would be a way to let north light in on that portion. If not, on each of these rings that are holding, the big concern would be rainwater. We might have clear glazing over the whole skylight as a roofscape, or it could be that there's actually rainwater being caught and taken off. Probably it would be covered over with a completely transparent glazing. But look at the effect. First of all, you're seeing it on the outside with actual sunlight hitting it. And now on the inside, this was the sunlight coming in. Again, we're using the drum to keep a lot of the dynamic of the color mix up in the drum of the skylight. We think that this, again, is a kind of mix of light, almost like those colored LED spotlights. Now at nighttime, here we're using light coming from above, and this could easily be done in a skylight coming through the photovoltaic material, and you can see again the mix of color in the drum of the skylight. Now, most recently, we're moving into entire roof and south facade for PV glazing. And this young lady, who's not here today, I'm looking around to see if she's here with glasses, but this is her basic concept, where she is doing folded paneling roof. It can be roof, skylight, and then move down to form the facades. If not the north, certainly the south facade. And look at her solution so far. Here you see the south facade to the left. That could be blue photovoltaic. It could have transparent. If you look at the lower triangles, those could be a window wall to let regular light in. But then on the north side, she's got ventilating, natural ventilating from to the north and north light coming in. And we're very excited about this. We haven't applied the color segments in because we think in this particular case, her design would maybe work better with all one color of photovoltaic glazing that lets the light through as part of her structure glazing. Here's another close-up of it from the inside. Here again, not only are we getting the glazing in photovoltaic on the south, but here you can see the north light coming in, and those parts of the north panels could open up for natural ventilation. And this is sort of the idea at Croon Hall at Yale, whereas the uppermost part of the photovoltaic array can be part of the ventilation area, and then it sweeps down on a curve all the way to the south windows at the forestry building. So we're very excited about this, and we think the subtlety that she's brought to this without all the crazy color mix maybe is a better way to go. Now, another big deal is we're working with reflected daylight with horizontal fins. If you haven't seen this by Polchek when he was still dean at the School of Architecture at Columbia, one of his best buildings, I think, and somewhat subtle. The Scandinavia House, or for the American Scandinavian Foundation, again, which my wife and I have been members for years, this building has horizontal louvers that are not just regular louvers that you might have from Le Corbusier and others, but they have breaks in between. When the steeper daylight is coming in, they not only, it hits, but it goes between them, reflects on the horizontal fins, and it comes into the building. So it's really quite nicely done. You're just seeing one portion here that has also artificial light on at the interior. Now, as an example of what it looks like here, one of the things I want to really share with you, let me check my time. Paul Henningsen did those wonderful light fixtures up above. They are like big pineapples, which each little piece of the pineapple is at a different angle. So the artificial light beautifully diffuses into the space. We have his actual shop drawings in a rare book in the Pratt Rare Book Collection. And for any of you who are in interior design or industrial design, as well as interest in architecture, you've got to ask the lady who runs the Rare Book Collection at the Pratt Library to see these incredible drawings. The light fixture up above, and I'm sorry I didn't put a photo in for it, you just have to see it, or you can go there yourself. It's in between 38th and 37th Street. I'm sorry, 38th and 39th on the west side of Park Avenue. Now, unfortunately, this canvas makes those horizontal louvers look crooked. But even here, look what's happening. The lowest one is reflecting those Paul Henningsen lights. And so when you're there, you can see how beautifully the daylight is spread. So what we are doing, this is a young man, is saying, well, I want to do something that's more skylight oriented. So what he's dealing with right now is spotlighting and reflected daylighting with vertical fins. And so you can see the vertical fins here on the left. There's an implication that that rear corner would have vertical glazing in color, but he hasn't quite got there yet. He's just looking to see how, if there were vertical aspects in that part, how it would affect the light on the north wall. But it's not only the spotlight like you see on the left, where the sunlight is really pouring in a heavy spot, but also coupled with horizontal natural ventilation. And what this is doing, the skylights are sliding sideways. The mechanism hasn't quite been refined, but that whole piece would slide back and forth to let you have natural ventilation instead of coming in at a vertical angle or from a Belvedere cupola, to let it come in from the side. And in the winter, you completely close it up, and this is being worked on at present. Okay, now we want to get into our biggie for the day. We're inspired by the new requirement by the Sustainable Workshop here in Brooklyn and in Germany. It's called Passive House. And if any of you want to enroll in it, you can go to Germany for 4 days, and that's all online. Just put in Passive House German workshop. Or here in Brooklyn, we have Passive House, and I think you go for 4 Saturdays in a row. But the new thing for New York City is triple glazing. If anyone tries to tell you, right after I got my brownstone down the street, built in 1874, with all new double glazing by Marvin, suddenly then, about 2 years later, the word comes, you really must have triple glazing. And all this wonderful attention to a modern window to keep heat from leaking out is also very important. Here you can see a heat diagram with the cold, the temperature outside and the warm temperature on the inside. In a normal window, that red would be streaks coming all around here and leaking out. But the new windows are just fabulous. So my students said, hey, we got that photovoltaic glazing from Europe. Why don't we consider the outer piece being a photovoltaic piece of glazing? And another student said, well, if we're going to mix color, if we use red outside or green, let's use the opposite color in the middle. And another student said, well, if we're doing that, let's listen to the ladies from Rensselaer and let's put a pale blue glass on the inside. And you're going to see the results of this in just a minute. Just wonderful what can happen with students in the lighting lab. Now, before that, we did experiment with just the red photovoltaic at an angle, at the proper angle, which is usually about latitude plus 15 degrees or latitude plus 10. So here in New York, more or less a 50 to 55 degree tilt. But what we also then started doing was putting green behind the red and red behind the green and then the blue at the interior. And you can start to see how there is quite a bit of nice lighting. The green is reflecting here on the south wall. The blue and the red seem to be predominant on the north wall, but there is a gentle lighting of the whole thing. Now, could you work in this space? Could it be an office or a lobby or any other kind of space? We're not sure, but it's an experiment. More recently, now we've been trying, what about the roofs? What if you had a tilted roof and you had the red photovoltaic and you had different colored glazings underneath? And even though this is shot horizontally, they were being shot at an angle to the sun. Well, we're getting all kinds of different results. This is red and blue. This is another combination. I don't think you'd be too happy in that space necessarily. This is blue, green, and red, and the red ends up being predominant. This is green and blue, as I remember, maybe red also. The sunlight is hitting it in still a different way. You can see it leaking in on the left. Here's another set of combinations of color of a little bit of playing around with the curve. And here we're surprised. We're getting, perhaps it's because the sunlight's coming in too much on the side, but we're getting a whole different mix of color and light. And here is strictly with blue. And but with 2 kinds of blue, the blue photovoltaic on the outside and the blue glazing on the inside. And we're getting just really spectacular result with a lot of daylight. Then when the sun is lower in the sky, we're getting this impact of not quite the same lighting of the space, but on the north wall, we're getting the main lighting. So what all of this has led to is our what we call our window wall. Each one of these little fins is tilted at a slightly different angle. Like if you took a Venetian blind, and we actually did that. We tore up a Venetian blind's mechanism to make each little blind slightly at a different angle. And Bruce Gitlin from Milgo Bufkin, the head of the Pratt Board of Trustees, who hopes to manufacture this if we ever get it fully refined, he was often saying to me, what if each of these fins were like a Venetian blind? The time-honored thing of a Venetian blind is each little fin, light hits it, and it hits at different angles and diffuses into the room. And at other times, you might want to reverse it, which I think would be rather silly, but that would be too much of a problem, perhaps. But, well, we said we're open to that. But right now, we've been dealing with horizontal fins. Each fin is set at a different angle. So here in this early study, This is sun coming in from 9 to 3 throughout the year on the student's computer. And most of it is being reflected to the ceiling. And we've got this more and more refined. Also notice the implications for the roof that would be up above in this computerized drawing. Now, what about if you're in a high rise and you've got a piece of the glass? Or what if you've got snow outside, or if you've got water outside? Those lower angles imply that the sun would be hitting a reflective surface and bouncing inward. So this particular student team took all the angles, made each of the horizontal fins at an even different angle, and also there's a ventilation bottom, which I like to always point out, and there would be one probably at the very top. So notice again, from 9 to 3 throughout the year, this is a summary of the basic dynamics of the angles, but you can see how they're going to the ceiling. And we're about to show you the results. At first, we just using the fins. There were times we were getting too dark a room. And this is just, this perhaps was the amount of sunlight we had on the day we initially did this. Here it is, the fins, and they have little adjustments so each one can be turned. This is a modern sundial for New York City. All you do, and you're welcome to take a sundial if you come over to architecture. In the pit, we have a pile of them. You put a little pin, according to what the sundial's height of the gnomon says it should be. You simply adjust the model and your sundial together, having their north angles correlated, and you simply get this to tilt. So the shadow of the gnomon comes to, let's say, 9 a.m. on March and September 21. And then you get the results. Well, in this early example, nothing on the fins, we're getting a certain amount of reflected light from the ceiling. It's not quite as emphatic, but every time the students did a different version of this, they tried different things. In this case, this has reflective surface, and you can see the impact of it coming into the room and largely hitting the ceiling, but also lighting the entire room. Okay, and now here we are using the red photovoltaic on the outside. Let me just see. Yeah, the red photovoltaic, the green glass, and the blue on the inside. No, let me just go back. This is the early stuff. Okay, and this was the results we're getting. Now then, we got the red photovoltaic from Spain, which is in shadow here, and we have the green glass in the middle, the fins then after that, and the blue glass on the inside. We're getting surprisingly a much more pleasant light. There are other times of the day, like early in the morning, and certain times of the day that it's darker. And I think you could work with your computers in an office setting, but maybe it's a little bit too much. I went back, I'm sorry. So now where this comes from, just briefly, this is coming from Spain. This is red photovoltaic collectors. We have all the information on this. You can also get purses with it, by the way. Here is the headquarters in Lowell, Massachusetts, where you can get this from. Here now you can see with the red outside, you can look out through this and see the outside world. Green in the middle, the fins, and the blue glass on the inside. It's still a little bit dark. There are times of the day and different times of the year, particularly in the winter, when we get a little craziness. Notice the ceiling beautifully lighted in sunlight. And there are other times that, but not much. It's really pretty crazy. So what I want to leave you with, and you can see this as we go out, our latest work last week, we're using different kinds of glass now. And we're getting really quite a surprising difference. I think the best example, we're greatly improving the daylight. We can pass this around. Let me just show you this. This is what the most general result is now. And when we have the red photovoltaic glass from Denmark, we think it's going to be much more pleasant. As we finish up here, you're welcome to take a look at this one. You can see we're getting much more daylight. And yet we're getting photovoltaic energy at the same time. So thank you very much. And feel free to pass both around. We can start with this young lady here. Thank you very much. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay. Remember, you're welcome to come to School of Architecture throughout the day when we had to take a lunch break. I believe our little Starbucks will be open as